Wrestling with Faith.
Welcome to a special episode of Wrestling with Faith. I'm Bill Wright, your host. We're here with Marty Miller, who is with Hope Wrestling Ministries out of Georgia. I'd like to think of this as kind of a special episode. This is the first time our podcast has been able to bring somebody on board whose entire promotion wraps around the ministry. And I think that's really, really special. I used to work with a couple of guys out of North Carolina who did a very similar thing, and I just didn't have the opportunity to follow them overseas to, I think it was the Philippines, the last place that they do, but they do some tremendous work. And here we got Hope Ministries that does some fantastic work. We're going to find a little bit more about them. How long have you guys been around, and kind of what started you on this path of the mission, if you will?
Yeah, so I've been in wrestling for over, let's see, I started wrestling when I was 16 years old. Started training here in Georgia, and I'll be 47 this year, so 31 years I've been in and out of the wrestling business, just around Georgia. And it's really been, it was kind of everything to me growing up. It's what I always wanted to do. And but I got saved when I was 22, and when I got saved, God completely took me out of the wrestling business, and it kind of showed me that it had become a God to me. It was kind of in charge of my life, and so it removed me completely. And then after a few years, my son, who is 20 now, he started to like it. And through him developing an interest, God started opening doors for me to get back into it different ways. And I just, when those opportunities came up, I just said, you know what, God, I said, I don't know why you took this from me to begin with, but if you're opening doors for me to come back, I know that you've got to be working in this. You've got to have some kind of plan. So whatever you got going on, let's do it. And what we started with, this was about 2000, probably 2018.
Okay.
And what we started with, my first goal was to create a chaplain type ministry in the wrestling business. You know, if you go to pro sports, every pro sports team has a chaplain, but professional wrestling doesn't have that. And what I found, though, when I started taking my son to events, is there's a lot of wrestlers that do love Jesus, that are Christians. They just don't really have a platform to share that faith or to develop that faith. You know, they're on the road. They may not have time to go to church or whatever it may be. And so I wanted to create like a chaplain service to wrestlers. And that was going good for a little bit, but it just kind of felt like it was hitting some walls. And I was praying about it, and came across a group out of Texas called the Christian Wrestling Federation. And they were doing these events where they would have wrestling shows, but then they would have people come out and share the gospel. So I said, all right, let's try that. And so 2021, we had our first show in 2021, we had our first event in Middle Georgia. And we had just an amazing night, packed house. George South came and gave his testimony. And we had 4 people that night give their life to Christ. And I remember looking at the ring with those 4 people, going through the prayer of salvation. And I said, this is it. There's something here. We got to do something with this. And so this November will be our 5th year anniversary. And in those 4.5 years now that we've been going, we've seen over 600, almost 650 people saved, giving their lives to Christ at these events.
Wow. That's amazing.
So, yeah, it's blown my mind. And you were talking about the guys in North Carolina, Richie and the Wrestling for Christ crew. We work with those guys a lot. There's some good guys up there. So
yeah, absolutely. 650. I mean, if just one soul
yeah
turns their life around and can find Christ, that's a win. 650 that's a whole different number. So God bless you guys and congrats on that. So what is next for you guys? Where are you heading now?
So the biggest thing we've got coming up, we've got a number of shows throughout Georgia and Alabama over the next few months. But the biggest thing that we've got on the horizon that I can announce here for the first time is that we are working on taking the Hope Wrestling Outreach overseas for the first time. We're going to take a mission trip to the country of Honduras.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I was telling somebody else the story the other day. So I got the opportunity to go there last year with the church. And I have this thing in me, and it's always been in me. When I walk into a room, my immediate thought is, hey, can we put a wrestling ring in here? that's just where my mind goes. So I remember driving down the road there in Honduras thinking, man, we could do a community outreach here. We could do a community outreach there. But to be honest, my faith with the whole deal kind of got weak in it because pro wrestling does not exist in Honduras. There's nobody down there that does wrestling. WWE visited there probably 20 or so years ago, but they haven't been back. And I'm not really sure if they didn't make money or if the crime rate that is going on there is an issue. But for whatever reason, it does not exist. So I thought, man, we have to get a ring down here. We have to do this. We have to do that. It's just impossible. So I kind of let it go. And
Sure.
the church that I'm a part of now, we have a missionary that goes to Honduras. And I was telling him about it. And he said, why don't we just build a ring and put it down there? And
Right.
He's actually there right now as we speak. He's called me a couple times this week, and he's working with his construction guys. They got the plans. They're going to build us a ring, and we're going to take a team down there in 2027 and just visit some military bases and some communities, and just take the message of Jesus through wrestling to the country of Honduras. So that's pretty exciting.
No, that's absolutely exciting. I mean, preaching to the whole world, right? So
That's right.
That's fantastic. That's big news. So you guys are growing exponentially. It sounds like that's a fantastic thing. What would be the next big thing here in the United States that people can look forward to in regards to Hope Wrestling Ministries?
So I guess really the biggest thing that we have going on here in the States is one. I mean, we're willing to go anywhere. So if you're watching this, and if you're a church pastor or a minister, and you want to do a little bit of a different type of outreach for your community, we would love to work with you and be a part of that. But also one of my favorite things that we get to do here in America is we get to take our events inside some prisons. We've actually been in 4 different facilities. We've been in one twice. So 5 different times we've been able to go take our event inside of a jail, put it up, have wrestling matches, tell the story, share testimony. And the last one we did was in March. We did a youth facility in Montgomery, Alabama, and we had over 100 kids come to the altar and just crying their eyes out, seeking Jesus. And so I really hope to be able to do more jail ministry events like that, because that's a whole nother world in there. That's awesome.
It is. Yeah, no, that definitely, I can't speak to it. I don't have the experience with it. At least on a wrestling end. Now I was a bail bondsman for about almost 4 years. So I got kind of familiar with that system, and certainly the people within the system. And boy, do they need Jesus.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's fantastic what you're doing. It's one of the it's one of the ministries that we're called to very specifically in the Bible, is widows and orphans and people that are in prison. So for you to reach out to that particular group that very often gets forgotten about, that's amazing. That truly is amazing. Do you find trying to push the ministry in the professional wrestling challenging in today's culture?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So do you want to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you find in regards to that? Because I mean, we just have, I don't know, I feel like in the past just 20 years, the disdain for our faith in the United States within the Western culture has just grown exponentially.
Yeah. So there's two sides when I think about that question. The one side, like you talked about, with the pushback on the faith, America's definitely the Christian influence. I feel like is definitely lessening, less than it should definitely should be, or it has been over the last few years. And in the wrestling world, when I tell people what we do, some people are like, "Oh, we won't want anything to do with that. That's crazy. We're not going to involved with that," because they think it's going to hurt them. I actually had one wrestler tell me one time that he felt like having that on his resume was going to hurt his chances to make it big. And I was like, okay. And that just tells me that he's not the one for us. There's plenty of wrestling around. You go find yourself somewhere else to wrestle. That's perfectly fine. And but when we talk about the wrestling part of it, the church world hasn't really opened their arms to us. We're still kind of the redheaded stepchild. When I talk to churches, we get told no a lot more than we get told yes, and because they just don't really understand it. There's no way that they can fathom in their heads how we can use wrestling to share the gospel until they see it. Once they see it, they understand it and they're with it. But if they're not willing to even open their eyes and look at it, it's a difficult road that we face there. So, but it is.
You know, I'm getting more familiar with your product, and I'm very excited about being introduced to your product. But what video wise, or would you say that you have to kind of put eyes on to kind of help the people watching now, the churches that might be listening, so that they can see, like, what does it look like with Hope Wrestling Ministries to be able to use professional wrestling, which, I've said it before and I'll say it again, is the only sport in the Bible to bring people to the ministry in what is, I think, the most flexible story format there is.
Yeah. So, yeah, on that note, I tell people, when people question wrestling, I just say, listen, if you go to watch a movie, the idea of a movie is to help you disconnect from reality for a couple hours, to get engulfed into that story and just forget about your bills, forget about your troubles, forget about all that stuff, and just enjoy the story for a couple hours, and then you can handle that stuff. Professional wrestling is exactly that. It's almost like people say it's a soap opera, and it really is. You take a story and you weave it through of good versus evil, and we just add the gospel as well. And so if I tell people, look, if you'll just give it a chance, and 9 times out of 10, people just give it a chance, they fall in love with it. And they jump right into it. And we put a lot of our stuff on YouTube, a lot of our events on YouTube. We don't really do a great job at that. That's one area that I do want to improve in the next year, doing more YouTube and social media type stuff. But we do have some of the stuff on there for people to see. But even then, I just tell people that the best way to see what we're doing is just to come to it in person. And I know if you're nowhere near where we're at, that's hard to do. But if you could get to one of our events, we got an event this weekend in Zebulon, Georgia. And if people would just come and check it out, they'll see that there's something completely different with what we're doing.
I love that. That's fantastic. So let me ask, what do you currently see in the landscape of professional wrestling today as a whole that you think we as an industry need to take a look at and to address, right?
So, well, wrestling has completely changed from when I grew up. I grew up in the 80s. That was what I fell in love with.
Yeah, 100%. It's a completely different sport.
Yeah. And so it's a different world now. It's, for me, growing up in the 80s, when I turn on wrestling now and I see the advertisements everywhere and I see the extreme violence in some of the shows and all of the stuff that's out there, I would be lying to you if I told you I was a huge fan of today's product. But at the same time, what I understand is that, like everything else, it has just evolved into what society wants these days. Because even though there's a huge portion of the internet that does not like what they see on television now, and they complain about Brawl every week or AEW, whatever it may be, they're still buying tickets. They're still buying pay-per-views. They're still spending tons of money on merchandise. And as long as people are doing that, they're going to keep doing what they're doing. They're going to keep going that direction. The old saying says, if you vote with your wallet. So if you really don't like what you're seeing on television, quit paying for it. Quit purchasing it. Quit watching it. All of that stuff. For me personally, I don't watch it religiously like I did at one time. I do keep up with it to see what's happened, just to see what's going on. And plus, me and my son will get together and watch it. It's still kind of a bonding moment for me and him. And but for me, I enjoy what I enjoy. And if I don't like what's on television, I just kind of walk away from it or cut it off or go find something to do. Because, listen, I can get online and complain about it, but that's not really going to change anything. Until as people as a whole begin to step up and say something about it, it's really not going to change anything. If I could pinpoint one thing that I really don't like, and I do not participate with at all, I don't like the intergender wrestling. It's for me, it's just number one, it makes no sense. And number two, that's not the way I was raised. And so, I was raised, you don't put your hands on a female, period. No reason, no excuse for it. You walk away.
Right. You
And
see it
so,
as a lack of respect.
yeah, exactly. And so for me, that's one area that I don't have anything to do with. When I see those matches and stuff come on television, or somebody sends me a video or whatever, I don't watch it. I don't have anything to do with it. I just walk away from it. And, but as a whole, I think that, number one, these are the best athletes in the world, professional. I've always said that, but these guys today, what they put their bodies through with those crazy moves and whatnot, there is not a sport that adds up, that matches up with these guys. And everybody out there is not a wrestling purist. Some of them get in it because they wanted to go into acting. I get that. That aggravates some people. I understand all that. But regardless, they're still the greatest athletes in the world. And they go out there and they're performing and they're giving everything they have for those fans. And as long as they're doing that, I'm all for it. I'm supporting them, whatever they're doing. So.
Okay. Yeah, no, I get that. I think part of the challenge is kind of the lack of public competition, right? Because like you have AEW and you have WWE, right? And neither of them really kind of push like what you would talk about like being like really family friendly, even television, right? Because both of them kind of draw that line. Certainly WWE is a little bit safer on the end of they have so many investors they're trying not to upset, but at the end of the day, like you can't really say it's a family friendly product.
Yeah.
And TNA tries to mimic what's really now, I don't watch a lot of TNA right now, so you can beat me up in the comments if you want to. But from whenever I have seen it in the past, say, decade or so, it's either imitating what's really hot on, WWE or really hot in AEW. They kind of have some of their own thing, but it's certainly, again, it's not a family product, right? There's a lot of the innuendos out there, foul language that tries to sneak in when it can, and then of course as much blood as we can sneak on television. It doesn't feel like there's really a competition for the family friendly viewer to really go to. When you do turn off, you're going to have to go off wrestling because what's the alternative?
Yeah that's absolutely right. And what I don't understand about that is kids are what makes money. When we do these independent shows, you get kids in the building, they're going to bring their parents. They're going to spend money at the merch table. They're going to spend money at the concessions. The kids are what brings the money. And everybody talks about wrestling being a business. It's a business about making money. Well, then why aren't we going for the number one group that's going to bring in that business? Because, yes, you can go for the 25-year-old single guy that's going to come and watch you bleed all over the place, but he's probably going to come by himself. You go for the kid, he's going to bring himself and his mom and his dad and maybe a friend. You got 4 tickets sold there. And I mean, if it really is a business, but I just think that it just follows society. I think the internet plays such a huge part of what's going on with the world and what we see in every area of our lives, and wrestling just kind of follows suit with that. So, but I mean, it is what it is,
Sure. Yeah, no, and certainly I think that there's a lot of that going on. I think everything you're saying there, Marty, is like, I think it's the truth. I don't have any arguments there whatsoever. I feel like sometimes part of the problem is that our industry lacks a certain amount of individuals with vision. I think you've got a vision. I think the boys in North Carolina have a vision. So I'm not saying nobody in the business has a vision. But what I am saying is that television executives and producers, the gatekeepers of the entertainment industry, if you will, have a tendency to shoot down anything that doesn't hit what they see as formulaic success. Yeah. If it's not the WWE, it's probably not going to be successful. If it's not AEW, which isn't beating the WWE, then it's probably not going to be successful. So nobody's really willing to push out there and try something different. But I think at the end of the day, you kind of hit it on the head. Like if it's a business and the number one like draw is like, the kids spending the money on the dolls and the toys and the t-shirts and the masks and the whatnot, why are we not, appealing to that? Why does Angel, the streaming service Angel, why don't they reach out to a wrestling promotion that is family friendly, that Christians would be able to support and be able to kind of support the faith and have a competition and take a little bit of that pie? Because right now there's a lot of people fan wise you can see it in the comments throughout that either AEW or WWE are just kind of tired and bored with the same old, same old.
Yeah.
Why don't we have, somebody who comes out and tries to do something that's a little bit more family friendly? And if you are going to do the adult thing, then be very clear that that's what you're doing. But this kind of middle of the road thing is going to snap in half at one point.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, everybody, like the regular TV executives, they want to mimic the success that WWE has. You look at AEW, and and I'm not a huge fan of their product, but you can see that even they know that the name value of the WWE stars is what's going to get them their attention over them. That's why they went out and signed all these guys. And I'm not against any of that. Go sign them all. Give everybody a job. But at the same time, though, like, when do we get something different? Like you were saying, I grew up. I mean, I can grow up, but during the Monday Night Wars in that area, you had WWE and WCW, who, although they used a lot of the same names that go back and forth, their products were different for at least a little bit. And then you had ECW that was completely different than the two until the Attitude Era started. But you had options. You had different things you could watch, different styles. And now it's all kind of, I don't know. To me, it's all kind of the same, just different names.
Yeah. And I tend to agree. Yeah, my co-host who's been sick for the past week or so hasn't been able to make it, but he and I were talking about the same thing, and how even with AEW, which my hat's off to Tony Khan recently talking about how he's kind of changed his approach to how he deals with the WWE because of his renewed faith in Christ. So I read an article about that. I'm going to give my hat off to him on that. But on a creative side of things, Ring of Honor is AEW. Right, and AEW is Ring of Honor. Like, it's the same thing. It doesn't feel different. SmackDown is Raw is NXT. It's the same thing. And to have companies that have that kind of money, that have that kind of roster, that have that kind of production value, not be able to separate itself in these products is interesting, because at the end of the day, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but part of what makes professional wrestling so successful is that we make you feel.
Yes.
Right. That's at the end of the day what it is, whether you're trying for blood or you're trying for heart, gimmicks or whatever it is, you're just trying to get the emotion. So as long as you find somebody who can resonate with somebody, you're going to find that success.
Yeah. The biggest match that's happened in recent years is the recent one in AAA with the Mass vs. Mass. And the reason that was so good, and the reason that was the crowd was so into it and everything, was because they made you a part of that story, and you understood, you were willing to buy in on one side or the other. And I think that's one thing the wrestling's lacking nowadays. It's like, what, this guy's on here, and one day he's cheating to win, the next he's pandering to the crowd. Good guys and bad guys don't exist half the time anymore. You look at Roman Reigns. I think he's one of the greatest of all time, but is he a good guy or is he a bad guy? I don't really know. I think he's both. And I miss the days when it was one or the other, because you can't make somebody feel if you're riding that middle road. And that's one of the things I really miss about the wrestling business, for sure.
Yeah, well, and I think innovative minds, and I'm not gonna beat up on Paul Levesque, right? Because I was a big Triple H mark for a long time. I personally enjoy the product much better under his guidance or under his leadership, his guidance. Sorry, guidance ship. Paul Heyman, I have a great respect for the innovations that he's had for the sport, but both of those guys have been around for a very long time.
Yeah.
And because they've been around for a very, very long time, you do have to wonder what original ideas, what kind of unique, untried things do they have left in the tank? Because right now, WWE feels a lot like they can't quite figure out what's going to work with most of the roster. They can figure out a couple pieces, right? They can figure out like Obafemi real quick, right? Like he was undeniable. So they just, strap a rocket to him because that's all you've got left to do because the people are connected with him. But a lot of the other guys, like you said, Roman's back and forth, Seth Rollins is back and forth, Jey Uso is back and forth, Sami Zayn is back and forth. They, because it's like, well, I can't figure out what works, so we're just going to flip flop them until the fans react. We're just going to throw spaghetti at the wall. So I would just be interested to see, do you see anything on the independent circuit? Do you see anything on the indies that, or not big league specifically, that you think has a chance to climb up the ranks and offer something new?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't get to watch as much of that as I would probably like to. There was a time when I would watch something every night of the week. Especially now, man. If I grew up in today's world with the access to wrestling, I would just do nothing else but just watch wrestling all the time. Because I remember when I grew up, you only had a couple channels, and so you could only access the territory around you until I guess I was probably about 9 or 10 when Joe Pedicino here in Georgia would do this Saturday night block of wrestling. It was like 6 hours, and you could finally see wrestling from other places besides just Georgia Championship Wrestling. And so I would watch that all the time. But back to what I was saying, I don't really have an opportunity to watch all of that like I'd like to. I do. I'll be honest with you. Other than I wish they didn't do the adult theme stuff. But I've been a fan recently of Major League Wrestling. I don't know. There's something about that promotion that I like. I don't know if it's the name or just the kind of the presentation that they give. But I wish they would get away. They don't have to go 100% family friendly, but don't present the same thing that you're seeing on television. Give me something a little bit different. And I think Major League Wrestling does that a little bit. So if I was to pinpoint one, it would be them, but I don't watch enough of them to really give them the full stamp of approval either. Yeah, I would probably say that. So.
Okay. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I've heard a lot about them, and I've seen them kind of coming up the ranks. But I guess the question I would pose is, I don't necessarily, and I personally, maybe this is probably confusing, but like, I think the real world is the real world, right? Like, I think if Chad Gable is wrestling and he hits the turnbuckle too hard and he gets a gash above his eye, like, that's a little bit of blood that just kind of happened the hard way. Like, my kid's gonna see that, and I can explain, like, accidents happen, whatever, but he's not gashing intentionally, right? He's not razor blading himself. I don't have to explain to my daughter that he's taken a blade and cutting himself wide open. Somebody gets hurt and they drop a cuss word, that's maybe one thing, but aside from that, like, the organic, like, it's real world stuff, why not commit to a full 100% when the competition is doing the opposite? You're never going to be the WWE. You're not going to be AEW until you have a billionaire that comes behind you. So don't try to beat them at what they're doing, because you're never going to out WWE the WWE. You got to do something different. So why not?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You got to be something different if you want to really make a splash. Everybody thought when AEW come out, everybody was like, "Oh, this is going to be different," and there were flashes of it, and there's still flashes today with a little bit I do watch, but it's as a whole, it's really the same thing. And so, somebody's got to do something different. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, you might have a little bit of a background, might know, I guess, a little bit more than I do. I think you and I have both been around close to the same amount of time, but I feel like you've got a little season on me. But if Jeff Jarrett had the kind of money that Tony Khan had, would it have been a different story for TNA?
Maybe. Maybe if he would have had the money and he would have stayed in control. I think that his, but then again, I don't know, man, because I used to listen to all the podcasts pretty religiously, and some of the stuff that he said is kind of goes along the same way. So I don't know. That's an interesting what if there, but I don't know if it could or not.
What if scenario? Fair enough.
I think it boils down to the TV executives. If that's where you're going, is trying to get on TV. The TV executives, a lot of them have no clue about wrestling. All they see is what they see. All they know is what they see in WWE, and so they think that's what they want. And so if they're giving you the money and they're pushing you to do that kind of product, then I guess everybody's going to go that way eventually.
Yeah, I guess eventually. I do think that we with the internet, the way it's growing, the way especially the youth is attached to it, and the young people are consuming TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram more than they are any television station right now. we're at an interesting point where some pioneers can come out and kind of avoid a certain amount of, the TV executive. I don't know. Let me put it this way. The recently they just had a horror movie that came out. I'm not a horror guy. I don't watch horror. I don't like it. It's not my thing, but I do kind of follow the entertainment media, and this movie was made for about $750,000. Now, if you know anything about movies today, that's like a drop in the bucket in comparison to what most of these blockbusters are spending, and it outperformed Star Wars. It outperformed Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and all these other different movies, and is raking in like $750 million or something like that, or at least is poised to do that. And their background again is YouTube, kind of growing their own homegrown grass movement through the online. The game's changing. And I just wonder what wrestling promotion is going to be able to pick up the ball and run with it and kind of be that next outlaw that comes up with something that kind of changes what the executives look at.
Yeah. Well, again, it goes back to what we've been saying. It's got to be something different, because there's a million wrestling promotions on YouTube now, but if they all look the same and they all use it. Here's one thing that aggravates me.
Yes, sir.
The few year or so ago, the Scott D'Amore did the Canadian promotion, the Maple Leaf. And I was excited to see that, because I've always liked Scott. I always did a great job. And so I was like, oh, let's check this out. And man, it was like watching AEW. Like, all the wrestlers were from AEW. There's a couple TNA guys on there, and I'm like, why are we using the same guys that's already on television?
We're relying on draw. Is really what it comes down to, right?
Even here in Georgia, there's independent wrestling promotion all over the place, but they all use the same guys. And a lot of them have different stories. This guy's a good guy in this town. An hour away, he's a bad guy over here. I'm like, that makes no sense, guys. Like, you're ruining your own product. I don't know.
Saturation, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like I know you got a little bit of a wrestling background, and you're doing great things with Hope Ministry. So I don't know like your personal background as a promoter, but from my experience, and I worked with a lot of different promoters from around the country when I was trying to put an app together, and I got familiar with hundreds of promotions. A few standouts, but most of them are inexperienced in the entertainment background, and so they don't have a sense of how to make a star.
Yeah.
And I think that is, part of it is we have a saturated market, and that there are a lot of promoters out there that don't necessarily have the qualifications to make new stars. They just have some experience here or experience there. And so it makes it difficult for them to have the confidence in themselves to try to make somebody brand new versus using a guy that they know is going to draw some butts and seats.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Or
Yeah,
do you think I'm off?
It absolutely does. And the what I would add to that, the sad thing is that a lot of wrestling promoters don't even have experience in wrestling.
Yeah.
And so you put that on top of it, and they just got some money and bought a ring. Yep. It's too easy to do these days. And but I don't know how you stop it. So
yeah, no, and I don't even know if it necessarily needs to be stopped, but it certainly isn't going to start the fire necessary to catch on and kind of reignite the sport. Like, I respect a Mark with money. Like, you're loving the business, you want to contribute to it. That's great. But that isn't necessarily going to make something brand new. You're just going to bring a mixture of the guys that are really popular local that are already overexposed in the market. And then you're going to reach out for a couple of guys that are off WWE contract that are overexposed in the United States. And you don't have anything different or new that's going to stand out. And so we have, I think, a handful of promotions that really, catch fire for a short period of time, but they don't know how to make like a forest fire that just keeps on going. Yeah. And I would love to see that change. And I certainly hope, that the niche that you found, and that our friends in Carolina have found, that might give an opportunity for some growth. And I certainly hope that some of these podcasts will reach some ears of some Christian oriented or family oriented, executives that might want to take a risk on something that's a little bit different, because wrestling is going to make you money if you do it right.
Right.
You know,
It's always been a moneymaker. You know, the story's been told 100 times how much Ted Turner wanted to be a part of his programming for TBS because he knew the opportunity that it would present. And even today, it's there. It's not oversaturated. Again, it needs to be something different, but there is an opportunity there for something different for somebody to step up. But will it happen? I don't know. It's just a wait and see, I guess.
do you have any names for any up and coming talent? Because like when I was working, in the business, like I got to do interviews with Tyler Black before he became Seth Rollins. I got to work with John Moxley before he became Dean Ambrose. Like there's always somebody in the wings who's hungry and running the indies. And gosh, Georgia's got to have a couple of guys who have some potential to really change the game in the future. Do you have some Hope Ministry names that we should pay attention to?
Yeah, we got a few good guys that I think really could make a difference in the problem. Not to say this is a problem, but the thing with some of the guys that we use is they don't necessarily want to make it big. They just kind of do this kind of this weekend warrior, so to speak. And with the opportunity that we give them to share the gospel, they just jump on that. But we do have one guy that works with us a lot that I think is going to be a superstar one day, and his name is CJ Gallows. And if you know that last name, is the son of Luke Gallows. And he's normally on our shows every time we do an event. Him and my son have been good friends for a number of years, and I actually got to officiate Luke's wedding a couple years ago to Bethany, and so the family's a good friends of ours. And but Cade has the size, he's got the business know-how. I think he's going to be a big star in this business one day. And AJ Styles, his son, is having his first match here in a couple of weeks up in North Georgia for another promotion, not for us, but they're friends. And to think one day that we could have the son of Luke Gallows and the son of AJ Styles in a Georgia wrestling ring is pretty cool. Because I think both of them guys are going to make a splash in this business.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So definitely keep an eye on those names. And how about yourself? Are you fully retired from the ring, or
I am. I retired a long time ago. I like the behind the scenes stuff, and the way my body feels now, just a little bit that I did do. I don't know if I couldn't handle it anymore, but I just enjoyed. I enjoyed putting everything together, the ministry side of it, having an opportunity to talk to the guys, and like I said, my heart. I love doing outreach events. I love sharing the gospel and all that stuff. But when these wrestlers start asking questions about faith, to me, that's when I really am loving what we're doing. And it's happened a lot lately.
Yeah, you're planting seeds. You're doing some amazing things. We talk quite a bit on this particular channel. We especially as of recently about eschatology and how certain world events are kind of clicking together as far as what we see as biblical prophecy. Is that something that you look at all? Is that something that has kind of caught your attention in the past couple of months, or do you just keep your eyes straight on the mission?
Yeah, for the most part, I keep my eyes straight on the mission because here's the reality. We've been saying for years that Jesus is coming back any day now. And I do believe that he is. I believe we're closer today than we were a couple years ago, which, anybody can figure that part out. But, I think there's still a lot of work to be done here. There's still a lot of people that either have not heard the gospel, if you can believe that. It's hard for us to believe that in America when we see it everywhere. It's on social media. It's everywhere. But there's literally people that's still in the world that have never heard it. And even there are people that have heard it. There's people that haven't accepted it and don't really understand it. I grew up in the church, but it wasn't until I was 22 years old that I understood a relationship with Jesus Christ. I just knew the Bible was a list of rules and what you could and couldn't do and that kind of stuff. I didn't understand the relationship part of it. And there's so many people that still don't even understand that part of it. So I keep an eye on all of that, everything going on overseas and all that. But more importantly than that, there's work to do right in front of us every day. And we've got to take those opportunities to share the gospel and to tell our story and share the message of hope with as many people as we can, any way we can.
Yeah, no, I totally respect that. Uh, I tend to talk a lot about prophetic things on this particular channel because they fascinate me. I think that they help to strengthen faith, especially when you see a lot of the opposition that comes from the culture, the scientific community, etc. Um, Apologetics and prophecies an interest of mine, but I think at the end of the day, the mission itself has to be the priority. So I don't have anything but respect for you in that regards. Keeping your focus is definitely the right thing. What is the what is the big upcoming event that people should really pay attention to, or do you have several that they should pay attention to in the next couple of weeks before we end up, letting you have the rest of your night?
So this Saturday, June 27th, we're going to be in Zebulon, Georgia. We're going to be at Life Springs Church, and we're going to have. We talked about him earlier, but Big LG Luke Gallows is going to be with us, along with he's going to be teaming with his son CJ, and it's going to be a great night of just Southern professional wrestling, just family friendly, 100%. And in the middle of it, we've got a former professional boxer by the name of Homer Gibbons, who is a former world champion. He's going to be coming and sharing his story before the intermission and sharing his testimony. And so that's going to be a lot of fun. Then after that, we've got July. In July, we've got a weekend of events. July 18th, we're doing a big back to school event in Griffin, Georgia. It's completely free. And we've got like 113 kids already signed up to receive back to school supplies. So that's going to be a tremendous day. And then the next day, we're down in Lafayette, Alabama. We get to go to Alabama a few times a year. And that's on Sunday, July 19th. We got Action Mike Jackson with us, the 77-year-old wrestling phenom has been on TNA and all that. That guy, let me tell you, that guy's amazing. He climbs the ropes like he's 20 years old, and he's over 77. It blows
That's
my
amazing.
mind. I hope I can walk at 77, much less be able to do the things that he does. And so we've got a lot of events coming up. You can check out our webpage, hopewrestlingministries.org, and also all over social media, just Hope Wrestling, and you'll find us. All of our events. Most of them are in Georgia and Alabama right now, but we hope to expand pretty soon to more places around.
So Hope Wrestling Ministries, you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, you're on YouTube under the same name, yeah?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Any other socials that you really dominate on, or those the big ones?
Yeah, that's the big ones. We do some on TikTok and Instagram as well, but most of those Facebook and YouTube. That'd be our biggest ones.
Yeah, TikTok's growing. That's a whole different conversation for another day.
It is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, look, we definitely appreciate you coming on, giving us an opportunity to talk about what you guys are doing. I could not be more grateful to have the opportunity to talk to, an entire promotion that devotes itself to mixing wrestling and ministry. It's exactly what we dream of, and we definitely support you guys. So anytime you got shows coming on, make sure that we have an opportunity to share them with our socials and get the word out for you guys, because you're doing the action in the field, the hard part, and putting the bodies on the line and whatnot. So I just want to thank you for coming on and giving us the opportunity to work with you guys, get the word out about what you are doing, and kind of how you see professional wrestling as a whole, and the ministry field as a whole.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it, dude. We love what you're doing. I came across I have like this eye out for anything professional wrestling and Christian. I always kind of look for that kind of stuff. And so your page popped up a while back, and so I've been keeping up with it. And so I definitely want to support you guys and help you guys best as much as we can. And because we're all in this together. Look, I believe God's doing something amazing in the wrestling business, not just through Hope Wrestling, but you see on social media, there's a lot of wrestlers that are getting baptized lately. A lot of wrestlers posting scriptures. I think God's really doing something in the wrestling industry as a whole. And I'm just glad to be a small part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, there's definitely been a little bit of a kind of a spirit of revival, kind of like through America as a whole, around the globe as a whole, and through the industry as a whole. So it's just it's amazing to be a part of it at all, and if there's any way that we can continue to support you guys, just let us know. But just thank you for being a part of it.
Thank you, buddy.
Have a good night.
All right. Bye.